on what these talks could bring. Let's cross now to Washington to speak with Asanga ABEYAGOONASEKERA, a geopolitical analyst and senior fellow at the Millennium Project. Asanga, thank you for joining us. And now, crucial talks are getting underway at the IMF, but will they lead Sri Lanka out of the crisis? And how will the government be able to convince the IMF that it has a sustainable debt restructuring plan?
Well, Sri Lanka has a serious crisis. As you mentioned, the insolvency issue is very serious. We cannot repay our debt anymore. So we have suspended all debt repayments, and the liquidity issue, which is very serious. The foreign reserves have dropped seriously. We would have gone to IMF 10 months ago when actually the warnings came to Sri Lanka that there was prior warnings. So we didn't go. The government did not go because of the ultra-nationalist policy prescription of the government, seeing IMF as economic hitman, and it would complicate things. So the regime came up with this ultra-nationalist viewpoint, rejecting all this. So we are gone to IMF now. We're very late, but the people are suffering. The essentials are not there. The medicines are not there. The crisis has gone out of proportion, and it has moved from economic crisis to a political crisis now. As you know, today there's going to be a new cabinet appointed. This is the second time the president is appointing a cabinet, and so you have a serious crisis which is going out of proportion into the political sphere. And Sri Lanka would need rather than getting more borrowings from China, for example, 1.5 billion was taken, another 1 billion to settle their own loans. So you need a sort of a more objective policy prescription coming in. So going to IMF was a good thing, but we are very late.
Well, first of all, how did Sri Lanka get to this point in the first place? And why, as you just mentioned, did the government, why didn't it act sooner?
Well, the policy prescription, which I mentioned, the inward policy prescription, the fertilizer crisis, if you have read about the fertilizer crisis, it's a clear example of the inward policy prescription. Then moving, losing many projects such as the Millennium Challenge Corporation grant, a 480 million grant, saying it's a national security threat to the country, losing the East Container Terminal, losing the Japanese the LRT, light railway train. So many development projects we lost. We tilted the foreign policy prescription was completely, we had a balanced foreign policy prescription in Sri Lanka, but we moved it towards China tilted foreign policy, even defending the human rights in Xinjiang. We have never done that in Sri Lanka. So our foreign policy moved basically into something, I would call it a bandwagoning foreign policy with China, so depending on China. So the inward prescription came with a heavy militarization also, with 28 military appointments, human rights abuse, the multiple concerns.
So, as you've just mentioned, the government has been borrowing heavily from China and has been sort of cozying up to China to borrow some money. And India now seems ready to step in. Now, what impact could the crisis have on the region?
It'll have Sri Lanka is a very important geostrategic location. It has direct impact to India. It has impact to the entire region. So if you look at the